Good day wherever you are, and welcome back to another episode of Below the Curve Gaming. It's Martin here, and before I get any further, I must apologise in that it has been a long time since the last video that Ben and I put out. That's really just down to, as you can imagine, lockdown for a while, a lack of getting any games in, but also work, moving house. We now have a shiny new flat with a gaming room, and also me starting college. You'll notice in front of you that these are not Hail Caesar models. These are not historic models, in fact, in any way. Nope, these are Infinity models. Now, if you know Infinity, just bear with me for a couple of moments. Infinity is a game by Corvus Belli, a small Spanish company. They produce Infinity as their main game, and they have a series of smaller games based off their IP and in the Infinity universe. It's a tabletop skirmish game, similar in size perhaps to Necromunda by Games Workshop, in that you're using between 3 and 15 models, but really that's kind of where the similarities end. It's played over 3 turns. It features a very unique mechanic called the ARO, or Automatic Reactive Order system, where when an opponent activates a model in their turn, if you have line of sight to that model, you get a sort of Overwatch style reaction, but you don't have to shoot, you can dodge, you can declare a series of different reactions. So despite the fact the game only has 3 turns, you're still getting to play effectively in both players' turns. It makes for a really intuitive and very intelligent game where you really have to plan ahead. You have to think about what could happen, not just what if you succeed, but also if you fail, you could actually end up losing models in your own turn, which could be really crucial, because if you go to move a specialist up to crack open a tech coffin, which is the white sort of sci-fi looking console just in front of the box on your screen, if you're moving your forward observer up to open that up and take out the storage container, and he gets shot in the face by an enemy, well, suddenly that's thrown your whole game plan into disarray. So you really have to have contingencies on top of contingencies. You have to really think ahead, try and work out what your opponent might do, try and tempt them into unfavourable exchanges of fire to try and get rid of their key pieces. I really like Infinity. It's a very different game, and one of those games that you really can't compare to anything else. Now, this is not our first rodeo. Ben and I and our friends Stephen and Sean have played Infinity in the past. We played it in 2016 into 2017, and this was during their 3rd version of the rules, N3. We're now in N4, which is their 4th edition, and we really enjoyed it. However, I had just finished university. I was going through a bit of transition in jobs. I was working for an agency, so quite often found myself being at very short notice placed in different places. Ben was going into his university from college, and on top of that, I then finally got my job in my qualified field, which meant we didn't always have the time to dedicate to playing and painting our armies. We also took part in a local league, which was a particularly unpleasant gaming experience for both of us. And we kind of fell out of love with the game a bit. Also, I had other things going on in my personal life, which meant that collecting armies wasn't always feasible, storing them wasn't particularly feasible, and so we ended up just not really being able to continue with the game. And to our eternal regret, we sold everything we had, barring 1 or 2 models, which I'll come back to later, as now they have discontinued some of those models, which has been more than a little bit frustrating. So we're just going to take a second and I will explain what's in front of you and why I've got these armies and these models. So first up, we have the Japanese Sectorial Army, or the JSA for short. Now, the JSA used to be part of the Eugene faction, which is sort of Oriental faction that consisted of China, Japan, sort of Southeast Asia, and more recently they now have some Korean models. But in the lore of Infinity, the Japanese had been subjugated by the predominantly Chinese faction. They were very much second-class citizens. The troops were used in frontline fighting, suicidal attacks, and so the Japanese were looking to break away. They had infiltrated the military with sort of sleeper agents and assassins, and then they made their bid for freedom and they escaped. Now, this gives them their own small, unique army. It's not nearly as large in variety as, for example, the Eugene army or the Pan-Oceania army, both of which I'll talk about soon. It consists of a single sectorial. So sectorial is a theme list. If you play War Machine, it's a bit like Storm Division, which is within the Signar army is the Storm Knight, Stormblade, the Lightning faction, where they get special bonuses based off who they are, but they can only take a certain parts of the range. So a sectorial in Infinity, you can only have certain parts of the range, but you come with the bonuses of being able to form fire teams, which are sort of squads in a game which is otherwise all about individual models. It allows you an economy of orders. Each model generates an order, but a fire team, when you spend an order from any one of its members, you can move the whole team. And so this gives you a big bonus, but like I say, you have less of the range. So the JSA only have a single sectorial. They have no parent list. They get a single army starter set, which I have bought, and this is the contents of it here, with an additional box set. So we have the Oniwaban, and the Oniwaban is like a super ninja. He can lead the army. He is stealthed, camouflaged. He can deploy ahead of the enemy army. He carries a monofilament sword. He is absolutely amazing. I predictably got mine killed in the first game I played before I even got to activate him by a 5-point Hack Islam skirmisher with a chain rifle, which is effectively a large flechette launcher. It fires chain links, and before I'd even got my first turn, I'd lost my lieutenant. Crippling. I also have a Kempeitai. They are the secret police in the army. They come with the ability to be the second in command. Predictably, mine was not. They have, amongst other things, they can carry shotguns, they can carry longer range rifles. This chap has a marksman rifle, which is kind of like a mini sniper rifle, and he has an MSV, or multi-spectral visor, at level 2, which allows him to see through enemy troops with mimetism, which is a sort of holographic field that makes you more difficult to be hit. They're particularly good. Over here, we have the Ryukin Unit 9. Now, these are Ghost in the Shell. You have the Major and you have Batu. They are absolutely awesome. They can deploy in camouflage. He carries a rocket and can lay mines. She has a juiced up submachine gun and can lay mines, and she's a hacker, which is a sort of well, it's a hacker. We know what hackers do. They make folks' lives misery in the computers, and in Infinity, you can hack enemy troops, you can shut down their armor. So in an opposed game, she could hack the big chap here, the Dayuko, shutting him down, immobilizing him, stopping his weapons working, that sort of thing. They're really, really cool. Now, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think this is the Agato Biker. Now, this is the special character whose name is far too many syllables for me to pronounce without doing Japanese a horrible disservice. She has a scythe, which is absolutely brutal. She has a smoke launcher on her bike, which is standard for most bikes, to be fair. She's difficult to hit. She's incredibly fast. She can't benefit from cover. She can be my lieutenant. And if I then have the Kempetai here as a second in command, should she die, it's not the end of the world. I have 3 of these Haramaki. Now, Haramaki don't exist in the rules anymore. They've been replaced by Tanko. They are the most generic heavy infantry trooper in the game. They're a cyber samurai. They carry submachine guns, shotguns. They have sort of underslung grenade launchers that can either fire a Blitzen, which is an EM sort of grenade, or they can fire Flammenspeer, which is an incendiary bomb. Unfortunately, only this lady here has a Flammenspeer. But if I wanted to, I could upgrade or downgrade, as it actually is, the other 2 to carry Flammenspeers. And then we have the Dayoko, I believe it is, who is 47 points, I believe. Now, the game is 300 points, so that's a big chunk of your army. He has 2 swords. I only realised as I started filming that I forgot to glue the scabbards on. He has a choice of 2 range weapons, helpfully neither of which are modelled on, so you can just take them as whichever one. One is the M12, which is kind of like an elephant gun, and the other is the Red Fury, which is a Spitfire, which is a sort of squad support light machine gun, and it fires shock ammunition. Shock ammunition incapacitates people immediately, regardless of how many wounds they have, and kills them. It's absolutely phenomenal. Now, the box set was all the spray painted white models plus the Oniwaban, coming to about 240 points, if I recall. So I can effectively field all of these plus my 3 Haramaki plus 1 extra of the light infantry, which I haven't actually talked about, for a 300 point game. Now, my light infantry are these troops at the back. These are the Kaisotsu, which I believe means exemplary warrior or exceptional warrior in Japanese. It's Ketsotsu Butai, to be precise. Now, these guys are actually the cheapest light infantry, generic light infantry in the game that doesn't include warbands, which are something special that we're not going to deal with right now. They can have heavy machine gun, they can have a rocket launcher, they can upgrade people to be paramedics, hackers, forward observers, who are sort of troops of a laser pointer. There's no 2 ways about it. They're very poor. They've got below average stats across the board. However, they are cheap as anything. You could stick your lieutenant, who could be a heavy infantry model, in amongst them, forming a fire team, keeping him safe, and they're just there to hold ground. And it's not what they can do, it's what they could do. If you set them up with a couple of heavy weapons, a hacker, and then your lieutenant, they could, on an ARO, kill something, and nobody really wants to take that chance. In Infinity, you have to assume the worst. Don't stride out across the battlefield just because you're like, oh, it's a ballistic skill 10 heavy trooper with a missile launcher. He won't hit me, it'll be fine. The minute you think that, he's going to critical hit you and blow you off your feet, causing 4 wounds in the process and killing your prize piece. So they are there for what they could do, whereas the Oniwaban and the Daiokai are there for hopefully what they will do. I played a game with these a couple of nights ago against Stephen's Hack Islam. It was a hard-fought 0-0 draw in that neither of us managed to achieve anything in the game. But it was great fun. Stephen was expecting my Pan-Oceana, and this game was a massive shock to him. Talking of Pan-Oceana, here's one I prepared earlier. So this is a small selection, it must be said, of my Pan-Oceana force. Now, Pan-Oceana were the first force I collected in Infinity, and when Stephen came round and started telling us about Infinity and how good it was and the new rules, they were my immediate point of, let's see what they look like now. If I'm going to get back into them, it's going to be these guys. Pan-Oceana consists in the lore of Germany, I believe parts of Italy and Spain, Scandinavia, India, Indonesia, Australia, parts of Africa, New Zealand, etc. In the Infinity lore, when things start to go wrong on Earth and they start to sort of expand into the stars, America, Russia, France, and Britain, who are known as Ariadna, I believe go first, but they get lost in space and they land on a planet called Dawn and sort of stagnate for a while, whereas Pan-Oceana continues to develop. They control, by this point, most of Earth. They're the hyperpower, as they're known as. And when they go into space, they colonize Neo-Terra. With Pan-Oceana comes the Catholic Church, and so they have quite a strong religious undertone to them. Now, I mentioned earlier that the JSA were the only sectorial for the Japanese army. Pan-Oceana actually have several. They have the military order, which is basically sort of the 15th century knightly orders, the Teutonic Knights, the Knights Hospitaller, and the Knights of Santiago in space. They have the Waldheimer Winter Force, and for example, this chap back here, and the Fusiliers here from that. They are fighting over the critical world of Svalbard. I'm totally mispronouncing that. Against Eugene for its resources. They have the Varuna Reactionary Force, and they are based on a water planet, the planet Varuna. They are stealthed. They do not feature any close combat really at all. We have the Kamau and the Orcs here are from that force. They also have a couple of discontinued forces, the Neo-Terra Capitoline Army, which is a sort of super police force. They shoot things and that is it. They have very few specialists, they have no tricks, they just have really big guns, and their guns will be bigger than you. And then there's the Shock Army of Contismento, which is a wee bit like the sort of Katachan jungle fighter idea. A Contismento is a jungle planet, and the Shock Army is the troops who are trained there and I believe who fight there, and they feature very heavily in the Fall of Paradiso campaign. Now, the Shock Army of Acontecimento were the army I sold, and I've regretted it ever since. If any of my watchers happen to know where I can get the newer of the two boxes of the Shock Army of Acontecimento, so that's the one that comes with the female Acontecimento regular who's pointing, the female sniper who's crouching behind the wall, the Knight of Montesa who's swinging the sword, the Bagmari, who I think's laying a mine, but I could be wrong, the Akali Commando with the Spitfire, who looks like he's jumping off a piece of stone, and then one more regular. Please let me know if you have it and are willing to sell it to me. Please let me know. But here, I will quickly talk you through some of the models we have. So we have a Kamau Sniper. Now, this girl is the premium ARO piece in the game. She has an MSV2 visor, so she can see through mimetism and smoke. She has a sniper rifle, which has an insane range. As has been commented in other videos, with its 96-inch range, you could shoot onto another table. It's devastating at long range. In a full fire team, she has a ballistic skill of 19. meaning she'll only miss on a 20, assuming the target's at a sort of optimal range. And she's also not particularly expensive, which is a real bonus. Here we have an Order Sergeant with an auxiliary or Oxbot. An Order Sergeant is the skilled version of the sort of man-at-arms, well, it's a man-at-arms trooper from history in the military order. So unlike the Croziers in the military orders who are volunteers, the Order Sergeants are full-time members who aren't yet knights. Now this girl is a hacker. Most Infinity hackers, you can tell because her hand points out. So she's there to protect my own troops and hopefully disable the enemy's heavy armour through computer programs. The Oxbot has a flamethrower, a heavy flamethrower at that, which is really, really powerful. Here we have two Fusiliers. Now these ones, Calliope, as she's known as, my only painted one, and this chap here, they're in winter gear. It has no effect in game, it's just the models, and it shows her from the Svaldheimer Winter Force. Fusiliers are the best core light infantry in the game because they're ballistic skill 12. Everyone else's light infantry are ballistic skill 10 in the case of GSA and Caledonia, or 11 for the Eugene and I believe Hack Islam. They have a huge range from multi-sniper rifles to heavy machine guns, hackers, paramedics, forward observers, rocket launchers. They're just your generic good troops. If you ever need to fill points in a Pan-Oceania list, if you can, you take Fusiliers. Here we have a Knight Infirmary. Knight Infirmaries is doctors as default. They're 25 points. Now a game's 300 points, as I said earlier. They're not bad, however they're not particularly tough. They're very susceptible to shock ammunition. They don't have a lot of options and they've no particular tricks for keeping themselves alive, so you need to be kind of careful with them. The big chap in the centre is a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre. Now these chaps have what's called a holo projector, so it throws out two holographic clones of itself, and you get holo markers you place down, and then you nominate in secret which of either the holo markers or the original model is actually the model. You obviously don't have to have it being the knight. You could have it as the first holo marker. And it makes it actually almost impossible. If you move the three of them up together and an opponent can only see one of the three of them, when he goes to shoot you with an ARO, as long as you don't shoot back, you don't reveal yourself. So he doesn't know. In fact, I think you can still shoot back. He doesn't know. They have to nominate which of the three they're going to shoot. So they could end up shooting a holographic marker. And if they hit it, and it's a hologram, it just disappears, leaving one more hologram in the real thing. And if you dodge and they miss, it doesn't break your holographic projection, as I recall. They're absolutely phenomenal. Now this chap is an NCO, which means he can use your lieutenant order. He is veteran, so he can't be isolated. He has natural born warrior, so the opponent's martial arts skills don't work against him, and he's carrying an armor piercing machine gun. It really doesn't come much better than that. Over here we have Shona Carano. Now I assume she's named after the actress Gina Carano. There is a bit of a passing resemblance. Please bear in mind the model's a couple of years old, so this was maybe before the whole stooshy over her comments or refusing to back down, etc., which led to her losing the place in The Mandalorian. There's two ways of painting her. One is blonde and one is far closer to the actress. I think I'm going to play it safe and paint her blonde. She is a sword mistress fencing instructor. She's from the Aristeia game, which is a sort of extreme combat sport where people can get killed. It's kind of like boxing with guns. Or maybe more like British Bulldogs. with guns. She can be fielded in most Pan-Oceania lists except for the military order. She's absolutely phenomenal. She can reliably take down a TAG, which is the big armoured fighting robot that you maybe saw earlier, in hand-to-hand combat. Behind her, there is a Trinian Tertiary. So they are infiltrating stealth troops for the military order. This lady carries a submachine gun. They can lay mines. They appear as camouflage markers, or you can hide them. You can place them as hidden deployment, where they actually just have to write down where they are. They are absolutely phenomenal. If you're playing military orders, you will not leave home without one. To the left, we have 2 orc troopers. Now, I can't remember what orc stands for. It's ORC, and it's the type of armour they wear. The big chap in grey with the gun in the air is a heavy weapon trooper of a Führerbach, which is an explosive anti-tank rifle. And the lady who's unsprayed is Patsy Garnett. She's an NCO with a submachine gun, grenades, and various tricks. She's not phenomenal, but she's not bad either. They are the most generic heavy infantry in the game. Now, this is one of the things with Pan-Oceania. Pan-Oceania are the generic army. They don't do anything particularly well, apart from they have more firepower than anyone else. They've got probably the weakest hacking, they've got the weakest doctors, but everyone has a very average stat line. So like the JSA, their troops stats-wise will be a bit worse, most of them. Most armies like infantry is a bit weaker than Pan-Oceania's in that they're not as good shots. But Nomads have better hackers, Hack Islam have better doctors, O12 have better troops, but they're a lot more expensive. Pan-Oceania are the benchmark. And so the orcs are completely serviceable, generic heavy infantry. Behind them, we have this new trooper here, the Boyg, I think it's pronounced, Boyg. He's in a sort of powered armour suit, maybe a bit lighter than the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre. He carries a rocket launcher. He is the only model available right now. I believe the other one would have the option of the Mark 12 in the army list, but it's not yet available. Over here, we have 2 Knights of Justice. Knights of Justice are what the old Father Knights were. The lady on the left has a sword. She could be anyone you want, which is phenomenal. And one of the real bonuses of Infinity is that most troops have between 2 and about 7, unless you're orcs, where I think there's 11, potential loadouts. And whilst they also say, make sure it's obvious what they are, they also do some that just have like a sword, so that you can field them as any of the ones that they don't have models for, particularly ones for the more esoteric weapon loadouts. The chap on the right has a Spitfire. He comes in the military order action pack. They are very expensive. They're in the 40 odd point mark, but they can lead your army. They can move forward. They've got a BTS, which is your save against viral weapons and hacking programs, of 9. So what you do is an attack has a damage statistic, usually about 13. You roll a dice, you add your saving mod, or your armor or your BTS, depending on what you've been hit by, to that, and you have to exceed it. So if you have an armor of 3, you need to roll an 11 plus because you have to beat 13, so you would need 14. So you've got 50-50 chance. If you have a BTS of 9, you have to roll a 5 plus on a d20 to save. It's phenomenal. And last, but by no means least, at the very back, we have the Knight of Montesa on the motorbike, and then the dismounted option in case the motorbike's proving to be disadvantageous because it's on a huge base and a big silhouette. This is a very new model. It is absolutely stunning. Previously, Knights of Montesa got dropped off from like a sort of flying APC, but there was no rules for that other than it sort of came screeching down with this sort of advanced deployment. And you always felt a bit shortchanged in that they were really expensive. And the background was that, yeah, the APC came down, all guns blazing, alien style, and he jumped out. But there was nothing to reflect that other than you placed him further up the table. So now he comes on a motorbike. He has a variety of loadouts. He can be a paramedic. He can carry a shotgun. This one has the shotgun, I believe. There's a new model coming out that has the Red Fury. It's phenomenal. Now, moving on. Oh, just very quickly, you can see at the back, we have the picture cards for the Zulu Cobra, which is one of our sort of stealthy special recon units. And to the right-hand side, the Black Friars, which are the military order Inquisitors. They have the MSV visors and various tricks to see hidden troops. They're really cool. Next up, we've got some of my Eugene, and I will talk about them in just a second. So here we can see the Eugene. I've changed the backdrop slightly. Now, I have a confession to make about the Eugene, and that's that I actually don't know what all the models are. Now, the reason for this is that I bought the Operation Kaldstrom game, which came out last year, and it was the game that launched Code 1, which is kind of Infinity Light. It plays with only some of the rules, less models, etc., etc. And it came with 7 Pan-Oceania models and 7 Eugene. I bought it off a very nice chap on Facebook, but I wasn't buying it for the Eugene. Actually, I was intending to flip, as it were, the Eugene models and just sell them on. So I didn't really take any interest in them. And then I discovered there was a sectorial list called White Company, which allows you to use some of the Eugene models from Kaldstrom, along with most of the Pan-Oceania ones. And at that point, I was like, well, I could keep them, and it would be handy to have another army, particularly if the Pan-Oceania didn't work out. This time, I didn't have the GSA. So decided to hang on to them. I put them together quite recently. And so as a result, I don't really actually know what all the models are. However, I will take you through what I do know. So at the front, this chap here is a Yimal with an AP Spitfire. Now he came in the Beyond Kaldstrom box here. I believe he has some form of visor, makes him a better shot. He's quite a pricey model. He is particularly cool. Over here we have Jinquo with a multi-rifle. Now again, this isn't modelled on her, which is fine. She is a special character ninja. She can form a small fire specialist fire team. She's absolutely nails. Here we have, I believe it's pronounced Yangshi. So these are the Eugene version of Fusiliers. They're not as good shots, but what they do have is a just slightly better stats. I believe they have an extra point of willpower. But they're your core troops, and you'll use them to fill out some of your fire teams. Fire teams don't all have to be of the same type of troop. You can have a fire team of Yangshi that's 3 Yangshi, a Zhuzhak, which is this chap here, and then the sniper, I believe, for example. But they can mix and match, is the point. Here we have currently the only Zhuzhak model. Now they're the Korean regiment in it. And they're really cool because they're heavy infantry, but actually it's not all armor plates. Now the way that he's sprayed up right now, it looks like they are, but it's like a really thick quilted bomb suit type thing that he or she is wearing with armor plates on top. New models come out towards the end of October for these, or extra models, not to replace this one. And they are absolutely stunning. They come with a hacker, they come with a heavy weapon of some description, they come with a special character who can be used as a lieutenant option. They're just stunning. Over here we have the Shangyi Invincible. Now, the Invincibles are a sectorial in Eugene, which is all about heavy infantry. It's kind of their version, to a degree, of the Knightly Orders. They get particularly cool models which are like the same size as Knight of the Holy Sepulchre with cannons over their shoulders and on the back of their arms. They look a bit like the broadside battle suit for the Tau in 40k. Here at the back, we have 2 Tiger Soldiers. Tiger Soldiers are point for point the best drop trooper in the game. Phenomenal stats, generous set of skills, really good weapon options. So we have one for a boarding shotgun, and we have one for Spitfire. Then we have a blue Mongol light cavalry tag. Now this thing's still 71 points, which is only about 15 points left in the other tag. It's brutal. It's got an armor-piercing Spitfire. It gets an extra shot. All tags do. They have the ability Tactical Awareness, which gives them bonus action. When you blow the tag up, the crewman, you can maybe just see the little arms here poking outside, so crewman disembarks, so then you can run him away and hide him. Now, bear in mind, I don't know if you still can, but you used to be able to force eject people out of tags, which was hysterical. And over here, we have the Gwicha tag. Now, the Gwicha has a massive sword and it has an HMG. Infinity is a game where models have massive close combat abilities, like cannot miss sort of close combat abilities. It is not a game of combat. It's a game of shooting stuff in the face. Combat is just the icing and cherry. If you can get into combat, that's all well and good. But actually, if you get into combat with the opponent, they are not forced to fight you in their turn. So they'll just sit there tying you up in combat if they don't want to fight. Now, the Gwicha, the problem with it from the opponent's point of view is it's a massive model, very, very powerful. It's going to go through whatever it hits, and you don't want it sitting around so you can force people to fight it to try and take it down. It can lead your army, as most tags can. Now, my Eugene isn't much of a force. I don't intend to add many more Eugene to them, but I do intend to base them up in the same way as my Pan-Oceania. So I can run White Company. White Company allows me to run Pan-Oceania Eugene as a mercenary company, which includes the Jujak, the Hakto, I want to say this is, Sniper, who is one of the best snipers in the game, the Tiger Soldiers, and the Gwicha. The Gwicha is not a particularly desirable pick in Eugene, but it is in the White Company list because it gets the benefit of the Pan-Oceania's remote network. So these here are remotes. These are Ben's remotes from his O12. Remotes are sort of like spider drones. They can have guns, and they can also sort of extend your hacker's sort of control radius, which also allows you to protect your stuff. And what this allows you to do is basically turn your Gwicha into an unstoppable killing machine, because you can stop it being hacked, you can stop it being shut down. You're backing it up by the Pan-Oceanian big guns, as opposed to the slightly weaker Eugene ones. Now, Pan-Oceania is all about firepower. Eugene is very much jack of all trades. It is not jack of all trades, master of none. It's jack of all trades. It does everything well. It hacks better than Pan-Oceania. It medics better. It doesn't shoot as well. And so having access to the Eugene machinists, which is what you call your engineers, we'll just call them engineers for the time being, but having access to Eugene's engineers and Pan-Oceania's hacking network with a Eugene hacker hacking through it can keep the Gwicha on the table for a lot longer. Also, Shona Carano, who we saw in my previous Pan-Oceania segment, can run up alongside or just behind the Gwicha and help keep it alive. She's very cheap, she's very, very powerful, and she carries a submachine gun, so she can hose stuff that would maybe move to try and spoil the fun of the Gwicha, throw herself into combat with them. So I'm really looking forward to trying that out. So that concludes the video for today. This is kind of where we're at. This is what we're doing, and hopefully our next video I'll be able to talk about more about the games we've been playing, show you some more painted models, some close-ups, talk about the game and the lore as a whole. As I said, if anybody has the Shock Army of Acontecimento box set or the newer Bagmari box set, which comes with the mine layer, the heavy machine gun, the sniper, I want to say the Spitfire, no, the Hacker, and is willing to part with it, please give me a shout. Also, if you have the Caledonian starter set, again, the newer one, please give me a shout, because these are the models Ben and I are looking to pick up, and we just cannot find them anywhere for love nor money right now. Thank you very much for watching. Please take care, stay safe, and until next time, have great games, enjoy painting, and we'll speak to you soon.